last week, Obama made this announcement regarding the U.S.'s ongoing war against ISIS.
When I announced our strategy against ISIL in September, I said that we are strongest as a nation when the President and Congress work together. Today, my administration submitted a draft resolution to Congress to authorize the use of force against ISIL.
Yep, despite the fact that the U.S. has been bombing the Islamic State for 6 entire months without killing a single civilian, according to the Pentagon, the administration suddenly wants permission from Congress to make sure the campaign is legal. And if Congress decides it's not, well, that's the million-dollar question. So joining me now to discuss the new authorization for use of military forces, writer and co-founder of the District Sentinel, Sam Sachs.
Oh.
Hi, Sam. So what can you tell us about the limitations, if any, this new AUMF puts on the war against ISIS?
Well, there aren't that many, but let's just talk about 3 attempts at restrictions here. First, this authorization comes with a 3-year expiration unless Congress renews it. Now, we've seen with emergency legislation or legislation passed to respond to so-called crises like the Patriot Act, that Congress has been more than willing to keep authorizing this legislation again and again and again. So this 3-year limit might not be such a limit after all. The other two, one, there doesn't seem to be a clear definition of who the enemy is. Yes, this is an authorization for use of military force against ISIL, but it also includes associated forces that fight alongside or take up the message or come after ISIL, successor groups that they're called. So you could conceivably see a situation in which ISIL has been, quote-unquote, defeated, yet we're still fighting a war under this authorization against a successor group to ISIL. Also, there's no geographic limitations here. It's against ISIL, but anybody who claims to be, any guy who takes up arms in, let's say, example, Libya or any other country that claims to be a part of ISIS, this authorization would allow the president to carry out strikes there. Final one, it says no enduring ground combat forces. I guess you have to know what the president means by enduring. That's a pretty loose term. Could it mean 2 days, 2 months, 2 years? The operation in Afghanistan has been called Operation Enduring Freedom. That's lasted 14 years. So maybe this authorization prohibits something like that, but who knows what else it would prohibit.
I'm so confused because I thought the first AUMF said associated forces of Al-Qaeda, and I guess that they could...
It actually didn't say that. I mean, that's become the thing, is that it didn't say anything like that, but courts and lawmakers have just made it say something like associated forces, which is overly broad. Now the president is just writing associated forces, that broad language, into this new authorization.
Wow. So, and what's even more amazing is there's actually members of Congress who believe that this new AUMF is still too restrictive.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, people, the hawks, as you would expect, like Senators John McCain, Lindsey Graham, these people feel like the global war on terror is something that should be embraced, not wound down. So when McCain is asked point blank, would you support broadening the president's war powers under this AUMF, he says, yes, I absolutely do. Other lawmakers have said, other lawmakers have said this new authorization is too restrictive because it includes more restrictive language than the 2001 AUMF did. And they believe that the 2001 AUMF is all you need to carry on this new fight against terrorists that we call ISIL this time. And they think that this new addition that President Obama is proposing now is unnecessary.
Well, I think here's the biggest question of all. Why now? We've already been bombing ISIS for 6 months.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the president all along for the past 6 months has said that the 2001 AUMF is what justifies this action against ISIS. ISIS, though, didn't exist in 2001. And, you know, as we just talked about, the AUMF doesn't really include associated forces. It's only to target the people who are responsible for 9/11. And again, ISIS wasn't around during 9/11. So maybe the White House is waking up to the fact that this argument is pretty untenable. Just last week, the new director of the National Counterterrorism Center testified in front of Congress. He was asked point blank whether he thinks the 2001 AUMF justifies strikes against ISIL, and he said he doesn't believe so, which would implicate his boss in ongoing illegal conflict here. But it doesn't seem like many people in Congress, at least in the majority party, Republican Party, which has been trying to nab the president on anything they can, they don't seem to want to go to bat to take him out over this. So is there any illegal war that he might be conducting?
Is there any clear objective here, or are these strikes just going to continue till the end of time?
Well, there's no objective in this AUMF that's been laid out. It's at least not defined in writing. I mean, we've heard the president come out and say, quote, degrade and destroy ISIL. So I guess that's
Sounds
the objective.
hardcore,
but
man.
as we said, with this new AUMF, we can see a situation in which ISIL has been degraded and destroyed, and yet we're still fighting against some successor entity or some group of clowns who took up guns in some country around the world claiming to be part of ISIS, that now they're in direct war with the United States.
So what happened? We have 30 seconds left. What do you think is going to happen if they don't pass it?
Probably nothing, considering that the president has been continuing this war without going to Congress, and there are plenty of members of Congress who don't think he needs to come to Congress for this because, again, they believe that the 2001 AUMF is there. If they do pass it and 3 years comes and it's supposed to be repealed, I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they just re-up it again.
Oh, what a mess. Nobel Peace Prize winning president ending with another endless authorization of use for military force. Thanks, Sam Sachs. Everyone check out the District Sentinel. Awesome paper going on. Thanks so much, man, for coming on.
Thank you.